Think of Southern California. It's beaches, it's desert, it's mountains, and apples. Did you know that the city of Julian is one of the only places in Southern California where you can pick apples 4,200 feet above sea level, and that its unique climate makes the apples sweeter than those grown at lower elevations? Or did you know that this little mountain town was once a gold rush hotspot before apples and pies were even put on the map? Welcome to SoCal with Val. I'm Valerie Van De Zilver, and today we're exploring Julian, California, a town where history, family fun, and small town charm and the world's most famous apple pies all come together. Joining me are two amazing guests. Tyler Stamets is the president of the Julian Chamber of Commerce. He is a Julian native, where he serves now as a passionate advocate for preserving the charm, history, and economic vitality of this fun town. Tyler's deeply rooted in Julian's local economy, in the culture, and he plays a pivotal role in organizing seasonal events, likes to have a good time, supporting small businesses, and promoting sustainable tourism to this treasured mountain escape. And we're going to talk about some of the fun things that they do and that he's a part of. Also, we're joined by Roger Hedgecock, the owner and the heart behind Volcan Valley Apple Farm, one of Julian's largest, in fact, I think it is the largest and most visited apple picking destinations. Known for its family-friendly atmosphere and scenic orchard rows, Roger's farm actually draws thousands of visitors each fall. He's a dedicated steward of the land and a beloved figure in Julian's farming and tourism. From apple picking and ghost stories to cozy cabins and pie secrets, we're going to share everything that makes Julian such a sweet escape. So grab a cup of cider and let's dig in. Tyler and Roger, thank you so much for being our guests today.
Thank you, Val. Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
You're very welcome. So let's talk about the history. Most people probably have heard of Julian. Maybe some of them go there every year. Maybe some of them haven't been there at all. But even I learned a little bit about the history of Julian when I was preparing for our time together. So let's talk about that. It was founded in the 1870s.
Yeah.
And it was a gold rush town, the only town in Southern California that was a gold rush town. So tell us about it.
Yeah, home of Southern California's one and only gold rush. You know, when you think of gold country, you think of the northern Sierra Mountains and foothills there in Northern California. But Julian was Southern California's own little gold rush. Nowhere near the quantity of gold that they had up north, but definitely quite a few mines, a couple of which you can still tour today.
And how was it discovered? Somebody just happened to find gold in the sand?
Yeah. They discovered it by seeing flecks of gold in the local creek. It's now called Coleman Creek after Mr. Coleman discovered gold in that creek. And, the saying is that, the rest is history. The town sprung up right next to that creek, and that's where it still is today.
That's exciting. So, and then from that point on, then the gold dried up and Roger came down and started growing apples.
Yeah. Apples came in a little bit after the gold rush kind of ended there in the early 1900s. Roger might have more information on that.
Well, it's a fascinating story, actually, Val, because when Mr. Coleman, who was a freed slave from the state of Kentucky, came out here and was kind of looking around at the creek there, and all of a sudden he sees this little shiny stuff. Well, as Tyler said, the rest is history, because thousands of people flocked there to see if they could find it. And you find today around the hills of Julian little diggings, little places where the land is kind of indented by these folks who were looking for gold. And on a property that I own, there's 3 gold mines, the Owens mine, the Janet mine, and the Chieftain mine, that were very, very effective for a couple of years in the 1880s and put Julian on the map. There was one time where actually the county of San Diego was maybe going to put the county seat in Julian instead of the city of San Diego. So kind of an interesting
Ah,
history. But the town itself was founded, of course, by James Drury and Mike Julian and the people that like that, who came looking west because their whole state was obliterated in the Civil War. They were Georgians, and they were
oh,
Confederate soldiers, and they came here. And what the Confederate soldiers and the ex-slaves got together to make Julian.
well, that's certainly interesting. That's certainly interesting. Great story. And some of the mines are still there?
Well, a couple of them are. Tyler mentioned a couple. The Washington mine is open to tourists to come and see how these miners with picks and shovels, I mean, they didn't have any elaborate machinery, were going into these mountains, and in some cases 300 and 400 feet in. And I've got a place on my property in which there's an air hole that was drilled down to get to the mine so the miners would have air. That drilling down is over 300 feet deep. So there was some really incredible excavations done. Again, pick and shovel.
Yeah. Yeah, the Washington and Eagle Peak mine are still open daily for tours. It's always one of my number one recommendations for any tourists who it's their first time in Julian and they want to get a sense of what it was like back in the gold rush days. You can go to the Eagle Peak mine and take a tour. They're open pretty much every day. And it's one of the most reliable tourist attractions there in Julian, and a very fun tour. You really get a sense of how difficult it must have been for those folks digging those mines, like Roger said, with a pick and shovel, but also what imprint they left on the landscape and on the town.
But I'm sure they did that because of the hope that they were going to find gold, right?
Yeah, and they did find quite a bit of gold there. And then the Stonewall mine, which is now part of Cuyamaca State Park, there was a large mine that you can go see the remnants of as part of the Cuyamaca Rancho State Park near Julian. That was one of the most prolific mines in the area. I'm not so good on my mine stats of how many pounds of gold were taken out of the hills, but it was enough for quite a while for it to be worth all of the time and the effort.
Well, that's certainly interesting, and we'll have to bring that into our next tour to Julian. So, for
That's
those
right.
people who've never been there, how would you
Hmm.
describe the vibe of this little town? What makes it so special this time of year? I've seen that some of the old buildings are still intact. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's very correct. You can call it a quaint town. You can call it a storybook village. You can call it a lot of different things. But the one thing that Julian is it's a pleasant place to go. And whether you're sampling some apple pie, whether you're strolling the streets, looking at unique shops, whether you're out picking apples off of the trees or you're taking a gold mine tour, you really feel like you're transported to another time. But it's a real place. It's not something that someone recreated and rebuilt as an amusement park or something like that. This is a real town that has existed since the 1870s, and some of these buildings that you're looking at were built back in those days and have been used ever since. So it's a living, breathing place that feels like it should be part of a theme park or something like that.
And are a lot of the business owners, Tyler, like you, have they been there for a long time?
Many have. There's a really great mixture of very long time multi generational families that are running businesses in Julian, and then there are always new entrepreneurs who are coming into the area, looking at how many tourists are in Julian, especially in the fall, right around apple picking season, and everyone still thinks that there's a little bit of gold to be made up in those hills, and everyone wants to try their hand at it. Some are very successful and do a wonderful job. Some are not so much, but it's always interesting to see all the different things happening.
So let's talk about the history of the apple orchards. How did they come to be? Did one person start planting, or were there apple trees already there?
Well, Val, you mentioned that there was a lot of attention paid to the unique environment of Julian, and it's quite true. As you mentioned, we're a little over 4,000 feet at the orchard, and we get, contrary to most other places in San Diego County, we get snow, a lot of it. And I think last year was maybe 9 or 10 days when snow stayed on the ground, and we got down into the 20s and early 20s, low 20s on my property. And this is essential to getting good apples off your trees. you've got to have what the farmers call a chill hours. That is to say, a number of hours consecutively when you're under 32 degrees. Because it's interesting, these trees, the cold is part of their defensive mechanism. When it gets cold, it freezes out the bugs and fungi and all this stuff that's trying to attack them and to eat the tree. And so the tree has this defense mechanism, which is rooted in the cold weather. So most of the places, San Diego County and Southern California, do not get that kind of sustained snow, and we do. The other thing, of course, is the water. It's very important to understand that a lot of the water comes in San Diego, of course, from conduits from Northern California, the Colorado River and all that, not ours. Ours comes out of the ground, and it comes out of the ground in my place in a fissure that's got to be water that's millions of years old, very low mineral content, actually, very good water, and it goes on those trees, and they love it. So a combination of a unique environment that's come together in this orchard to produce trees that are really quite wonderful.
And I heard something, and you just said this, you just referred to it, something about that it needs cold for part of it, needs hot for some of it.
Well, the hot comes along, that's true. So the cold is in the wintertime, but then in the spring and summer, you need that heat. And what you don't need is a lot of humidity. And that's another thing that's unique about San Diego County, as opposed to, say, the South or Texas or wherever. We don't have a lot of humidity. Now, recently, we've been getting some storms called the monsoons come up from Mexico. We get good rain, which I like, but we also get a humidity, which I don't like. And that's something that produces some problems for the trees. But most of all, characteristically, we don't have the high humidity in other places. And again, this is very good for the apple trees.
Let's go back a minute, Roger, and talk about your history. So give our listeners and our viewers a few little insight into your background, what brought you to where you are, and of all the things you could have done, how did you end up here?
Well, this lawyer, politician, talk show host, I finally got to the end of that line in 2016. And before that, I'd always wanted to have a place in Julian where I could get away. I live down at the beach, get away from the urban area and come up and have some fun in this unique little town that Tyler was talking about. And I finally found a house on 5 acres, a beautiful place. And then down the road, there was this big orchard, and the elderly lady that was running that decided time to give that up. So she sold it to me, and I started in. We closed escrow in March of that year, 11 years ago. And my harvest was scheduled for September, and I knew nothing about what to do next in terms of that. So there was a guy named Ray Meyer, who at 84 had been working those trees in Julian since he was 29 years old. He knew everything about it. So I said, Ray, I'm attaching you to my good ear, and you're going to tell me every day what I need to do to make this September harvest work. And sure enough, he did that. And that was the beginning of the whole thing.
And what time of year was it that you got started?
Well, I came into it in March in the spring. And so he started talking to me about blossoms. And I said, blossoms? And he said, yeah, bees. And I said, bees. And so we went from there.
My goodness. So apples, you always get a fresh batch every year, correct? It's not
every year, and only once a year. That's correct.
Right. And then you have people who pick, like one of our sponsors on this show is a winemaker. And so we talk about the harvest for grapes, which is a little bit different. But then there are people that go up and down the rows and pick the grapes. And I'm assuming the same thing happens with you. You have pickers?
Well, no, we have a little bit different situation here because it's a U-pick. So what we do is at a certain time when all the apples are getting ripe, we open our gates to the general public. We sell them a bag, and they go out with their kids and grandkids and have fun picking the apples. And we've got picnic tables, and we've got lemonade stands, and we've got all kinds of fun stuff to do for families. And so the families come up and they pick. And this is the experience I really love about this. The kids approach a tree, and they get to twist it and pop off an apple and actually eat it because we don't spray pesticides. So they can eat the apple right there and get the experience that these apples don't just arrive in a supermarket. These are apples right off the tree and a very, very good taste.
Yeah.
So tell us about the type of apple. This didn't happen to come from Julian. It came from the grocery store. But so do you have like Granny Smith's? I mean, what do you grow?
The orchard that I bought into was already 40 years old. So the varieties they planted then, the Jonathans, the Empires, the Golden Delicious, the Pippins. So our Pippin is like our Granny Smith, but I think maybe much more tasty. The
Of
Empire
course,
is,
of
yeah,
course,
yeah,
we're sure that must be the case.
absolutely. So the Empire is actually half of what do you call them? That you find in the stores now. The Macintosh and the Empire were put together, and the result of eating an Empire is you go, oh well, this is very sweet and juicy and all that because it's right off the tree. For one thing, you don't have 5 months in a cooler before you get it in the supermarket, so it's a whole different attitude. And we have 4 or 5 different varieties, depending on whether you want to cook or whether you just want to eat.
Now, I read that you advertise or you market that the apples are there until they're all gone. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
So, and then you told me before we started today that your time with your open to the public is 4 days or 3 days or 5 days. How many days a week are you open?
Three days a week. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we're coming to the end of 2025. Actually, it was an interesting year, and not as many apples as I thought were going to be there. So we're shortening the season a little bit. But by the time people see this, mark your calendar for September of 26 because we'll be back with a bigger crop. I hope by that time. But we are certainly open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of most weekends in September for the public to come and pick their own apples.
And considering the amount of the size of your orchard, and forgive me if I don't use the right terms, considering the size of your orchard, when do you always open on the same day? Like, for example, do you always open on Labor Day, for example? And does it usually take the same amount of time every year to sell out your crop?
We'll open after Labor Day because we figured on the long-term basis that's when the first apples get to be ripe and they're ready to be picked. But it varies. It depends. The apples are in charge, and so when they're ripe and they're ready, then we open, and when they're gone, we close, and that's the way we operate.
And that usually takes how many weeks?
Usually, it's going to be 4 weekends of the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This year, we're not going to make four, but we're having a heck of a good time doing what we're doing.
And that's all.
That's
That's
it.
all. The only time people can come.
What you're saying, Val, is I'm never going to get an honorary MBA because my business model is 12 days of revenue and 353 days of expenditures.
Yes. Yeah, we get it. I thought you were going to say the other days you were going to retire, and I well, that's kind of a good thing.
No, there's work to be done.
Yes, yes, there is. So what? Okay, well, Tyler, we'll go back to you on this. So how has Julian balanced maintaining its historic character while being accessible to modern visitors? Do people still, and
Yeah.
obviously they do, want the historic charm?
Right, right. Well, I mean, I think the important thing to note is even though apple picking is a short portion of the year when you can actually go and pick fresh ripe apples off the tree, there's something going on in Julian year round. There are festivals happening year round. We have a large Christmas celebration that we do every year. We do our Grape Stomp Festival. There are countless performing arts groups and different venues around town with live music and events. So no matter what time of year you happen to decide to visit Julian, there's always something to do. And there's apple pie in the shops year round. So if you don't get a chance to pick a pie or pick a pie off the tree, nope, pick an apple off the tree, there's still going to be a fresh made warm Julian apple pie in half a dozen bakeries around town at this point that is definitely worth the drive alone. So that's an important thing. You know, some people say, "Oh, I missed it. I didn't get a chance to go apple picking." Well, there's still plenty of things to do in
And
Julian year round.
excuse me, and Roger, what do you do anything in your orchard for the off season?
Not for the public. We're working the trees, we're trimming them, and we're pruning them, and we're all those things that need to be done in terms of the irrigation and the fertilizing. But by the way, if you come down for some of the wonderful music happening in Julian in various places, and a lot of the times Tyler Stamets will be playing his banjo and guitar, right,
I
Tyler?
was going to add, yeah, yeah, Tyler,
Yeah,
will we
yeah.
see you performing?
Yeah, well, my next performance in Julian for a major event is for the Country Christmas event, and that happens every year the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So that puts it this year. I'm going to actually look at the calendar so I don't get it wrong. That's November 29th is our big Christmas tree lighting ceremony right there in the center of town. And we decorate the whole town with lights and decor, and then have a nice Christmas tree lighting ceremony. We light the Christmas tree at 6 p.m. on the 29th. And that's a yearly event. So if you miss it this year, you can come back. It's always the Saturday after Thanksgiving that Julian turns into little Christmas town.
Oh, so Tyler, tell us a little bit about you. You were
Mm-hmm.
born and raised in Julian, and now you have two or three different businesses. I know of three. What else do you? I don't want to
Yeah,
say what else.
born and raised in Julian. I went to Julian Elementary and Julian High School growing up. My father was a business owner in town. My mother was a teacher at the elementary school. She actually taught music at the
Oh,
elementary school there in Julian. So I got a lot of my musical education from her. I actually played music growing up with my parents. We had a little folk trio. They were playing as a duo, and then as I got older, they roped me into playing music with them. So we would play at various Julian events. This was many years ago at this point, but I graduated from high school, and then I decided to move away from Julian for a while. I needed to get out of the small town and experience the rest of the world. Went up to Orange County, went to UC Irvine for college, studied theater and a lot of different things there. I wound up working for Disney for many years, but then I have found myself back in Julian again. Um, my brother and I co-own two different gift stores in town. The Old Julian Garage is our newest venture that we've been operating for the last 5 years. And the Warm Hearth is the largest gift store in town. It sells gifts, clothing, food items, all sorts of different things. It's a true general store, and you can find a lot of great items if the shopping bug hits you while you're in Julian, and always something great to see in there. I'm also a real estate broker. I have a real estate brokerage with my business partner, Angela. It's Tyler and Angela do real estate. So we do a lot of real estate in the Julian and surrounding areas. And I'm also a musician. I have a band called the Sun Valley String Band. We play bluegrass style music and do a lot of producing events for the community, including the Country Christmas and the Grape Stomp Festival. And I also produce the Julian Town Square Music Festival every June. So that's a quick rundown of all the different things that I do.
so for someone who wonders what you do when you're not the council president
Yeah,
or the chamber president, that's
yeah,
what you do, right?
yeah. I'm busy with something, no
I
matter
see
what it
that.
is. Yeah,
I see that. I see that. Yes, how exciting! And not only that, you're a great businessman, from what I've had the privilege of seeing, and you you are a man of your word, and you're just a fine person. So, as are both of you. So, tell us, who are your favorite guests? Do you love it when the families come? Do you like international guests? Do you have people who come every year and they come up to you and say, "Oh, I was here last year"?
yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
go ahead.
my favorite are definitely those families that make a point to come to Julian every year, those repeat visitors. And so many people that do come to Julian come every year or every other year, and they have their favorite spots, and they love to go visit their favorite spots and sample their favorite foods, or visit their favorite apple orchard and pick those apples. And it's great to see the same faces over and over again. And the thing that makes me the happiest is when someone tells me, "Oh, going to your store is a family tradition. We've been going there every year to buy gifts for the last 10 years, the last 20 years,
Oh,
and our businesses have been in business for quite some time. So we have second generation of people who are shopping at the Warm Hearth there in the middle of town, and it's great to see those folks coming back over and over again. Those are definitely my
what
favorite. I love them all.
yeah, I'm sure. And what a privilege. What about you, Roger? If someone's never been to a U pick, what can they expect when they come to your orchard?
Well, we have people there who help them to understand the process. They get this bag and then they immediately ask, well, what varieties do you have? And what about red? And what about yellow? All that. And we have somebody to help people. We show them where the orchard is organized row by row with a sign that says what kind of apples in that row and how you get to the good ones and where the good ones are today and all that kind of thing. But I want to also emphasize what Tyler just said, because I love the fact that we have people come in, and I've just experienced this yesterday. People come in and
Oh,
say, well, my parents brought me here when I was 10 years old, and now I've got my kids 10 years old, and here I am. And there's grandparents and parents and kids coming in, and it's a total family affair. It's really a great experience for the family. And I just want to add that for me, I don't need to do this. I'm old enough to be totally retired and having fun, but I don't want to do that because to me, having fun is interacting with these people who are discovering that fresh off the tree apples a whole different experience than what you get in the store.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it
I
is.
was
And
lucky
then,
enough to grow up eating those apples fresh off the tree. I lived down the road from what had been a orchard that wasn't being upkept or picked very often, but I would go down every fall right around this time of year and grab as many apples as we could carry home off of these trees. And the apples are amazing. And I've still never tasted apples anything like them.
No, that's true.
and
And up at the house, Valerie, I've got the house as a separate property. My wife and I have, and we have some old trees on this from a preceding pioneer family, the farmer family, actually, they were called.
oh,
And the farmer
oh,
family planted an orchard that I still have 22 examples of that are over 100 years old. And so these are before genetic engineering and all that. We have 4,000 varieties of apples now in this country. But back when there was, a couple of dozen, the Red Delicious that grow there are just as perfect as you could imagine. And every year, those trees, without a lot of prompting, produce a lot of apples. Some of which go into Tom Nichols beer. By the way, he makes an apple beer that's just terrific.
and do either of you bake pies at home, or do you go and get them at the pie company?
Well, I'm not the biggest pie baker. I enjoy other culinary pursuits, but pies. I was lucky enough to grow up eating lots of Mom's apple pies, which is another pie
Yep.
bakery in Julian, because my aunt is the owner of Mom's Pies, and so
Right.
I was spoiled rotten for pies all through my entire childhood and right up until today, because having a pie maker in the family has its benefits. Let me tell you, when you show up for Thanksgiving and the stack of pies is a mile high, and you have your pick of every single variety that that pie shop makes, which is about 20 different pies. It's pretty great. Everyone can have their own pie for dessert if they want it.
Well,
Yeah.
that
And
would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, so most of the apples that you grow, Roger, are they? I guess you'd say harvest. Are they also good pie apples?
a lot of them are, and people will come. For instance, I have 2 rows of Gravenstein apples, which are no longer produced commercially, but people who make applesauce and apple baked goods love this. They come from LA, they come from Orange County, they'll come from all over Southern California. When I announce we're going to have what we call our Gravenstein Festival, these 2 rows out of 50 rows that I have, these 2 rows grow these Gravensteins, and people just come from all over to get them. And they come in early. The problem with them, and the reason they're not commercially grown anymore, they become ripe, and then about an hour later they drop on the ground. Unlike other apples that
Oh,
stay on the tree. So these are
sure.
very fragile apples and very tasty. So we do have some that the bakers really enjoy because, for instance, Sonoma County used to be covered with Gravenstein trees and no longer because it's all grapes.
So the people who know, it's one of those if you know, you know kind of
Yeah,
situations, right? Then
yeah.
they're there first thing when they know that the gates are going to open, right?
That's correct. And I've got several that come in and they want a dozen bags or more. One a lady comes every year, and every year I greet her. She's there first, like you say, she's there first. And I say, so you're going to make an applesauce again this year? She says, all my grandkids get fresh applesauce for Christmas. So that's what she does with the apples.
Oh my goodness. So the most popular things are pie and cider and applesauce.
Well, absolutely. And you get several competing now. Tyler mentioned Moms. There's also the Julian Pie Company. There's also the
Yes.
California Mountain Bakery. There's also Apple Alley. There's a bunch of them
Yeah.
and they all kind of compete. And I love it because of the best pies come out of these places because they're in competition and they know we're very discerning about our pie.
That's right. That's right. I mean, the most fun thing that you can have in Julian, besides apple picking, is doing a apple pie crawl around town, where you don't just go to
Oh,
one of the bakeries and sample a piece of pie. You go to each one of these pie shops around town, and you can decide which one you like the best and see who has the best crust, the best apples that day. And it's a lot of fun to taste a few different examples around town.
so now tell us a secret.
Okay.
Are all of these made with locally grown apples?
Well, unfortunately, I think Julian sells far too many pies for them always to be made with locally grown apples. But I know that most of the bakeries, when they can get Julian apples, they love to use them. But that is right around this time of year is when you
Right.
might be able to find some Julian pies made with Julian apples. But unfortunately, the season is short and the demand is high. So if you really want a Julian apple pie with Julian apples, you have to get there right when the apples are ripe. And I know that Mom's Pies is the one that I have the most information on since it's family, but I know that they buy local apples as much as they can get their hands on every year and use them in their pies. But they do have to supplement with apples that come from other locations because there's just too many folks who want to come up and have a good apple pie.
And
One
they
of
want to, and people come for apple pies all year round.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. One of the other things that we do with the apples, Val, is we have a situation where a lot of the apples do drop on the ground, and under California law, I can't, pack those into bags for people to take home. So what we do is we sell them to the apple cider makers, the hard cider makers, and they make a delicious bunch of apple cider. That's
Yeah.
also very, very big a local favorite as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And that's hard cider.
Hard cider,
Yeah, there's both hard cider and soft cider.
right, right.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get
Yes.
both.
So are you telling me that once the apple touches the ground, you can't sell it?
We can't sell it as an apple in the bag, and so under California law now, I get people from Europe coming in. They say, and very correctly, they know what they're doing. They'll tell me, and we have European travelers and visitors all the time, and they'll go and they'll wait. They'll see the apple that's just fallen from the tree, and they'll get that one off the ground. Now I can't stop them from doing that, and I'll ask them, why are you picking that one up from the ground? And they'll say, that's the one that's the ripest because it just dropped off the tree. It's the ripest apple on that tree, and so they don't understand the California law at all.
Yeah.
And if they stick it in their bag, who knows? Because you're not watching them, right?
Well, no, if they stick it in the bag, that's not a problem. If I tell them to stick it in the bag, that's the problem under California law.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, Tyler, we've talked about all the seasons. How does the apple season affect the local economy of Julian? Do
Oh,
all the businesses gear up in their own way?
yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the busiest season, and it starts ramping up, right after Labor Day through September, and then kind of hits a fever pitch the second that the leaves start turning gold and red in October. Lots of people come up to the mountains to see the change in the foliage as well. They have been primed by I don't know, just pop culture to think that that's when they can go pick some apples. But unfortunately, by the time the leaves are turning, they missed it by about a month. So they have to settle, shucks, for some fresh made apple pie, some fresh pressed apple cider, maybe some apple beer or hard cider, and a lovely stroll in one of the state parks surrounding town. So I think they're okay. They're going to be okay.
They'll survive. So,
Yeah.
Roger, how far in advance do you prepare for your season? Do you plan for the season? You said that you work year round, but are there some things that you do specifically as you get closer to your release season?
Yes, well, we are working all year round. In fact, during the winter time, when it's snowing and raining and cold, we have to be out there pruning these trees to make sure that what's left gets proper sunshine when the apples are trying to mature. And then in the spring, we have to protect the blossoms because if we get a late freeze, as we did 2 years ago, it freezes off the blossoms and the crop is not good. So we have a wind machine that keeps the air churning in the orchard so that it doesn't get below the 29 degrees, which is a danger zone for these blossoms. And then when the blossoms mature into apples, then we're good. And then we have to thin because the apples, people don't know this, apples come in clusters. They don't come individually. They come in clusters almost like grapes. So you have to take and thin them when they're young so that the central apple, the strongest one, will grow into a size that you can see as an apple. So we have quite a lot of work that goes on. And then right before the time when we open up for the U-pick, we'll have open the gates. We'll put up big signs. We'll put up a nice a variety of vendors will come in. And this year we had a very successful pony ride for the kids that went on in conjunction with the picking. So a lot of things have to go on to make this thing the success that it is.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. If I'm I always love grand openings, and Tyler being at an amusement park, I'm sure you do too.
Oh yes.
Like the gates open and all the excitement happens. I can imagine when you were at Disneyland and all the fun that you must have experienced. So I can imagine. So I live in a tourist area, and a lot of the full time residents don't like the tourist season because it's crowded. There's cars. Do you have that in Julian, or do people really love the tourists?
Well, like you said, it's a love-hate relationship. I think in any sort of tourist town with the full-time residents. I think that in Julian, maybe even more than in other locations, it is very apparent that the success of the town is the tourist trade and how many people come in and spend their money in town. That's a very, very important thing. If we didn't have visitors coming year round, this little town would not be anything like it is. So everyone knows how important and values those visitors every year. But there are moments when the traffic is backed up because we don't even have a stoplight in Julian.
Oh,
There's a main
that's
intersection with just a stop sign, and it's a four-way stop. And when you get 1,000 people also walking around town that are trying to cross the street, it can get frustrating. So locals have learned during what we would call apple season, which is always in air quotes because it goes way beyond when there's any apples. When it's apple season or it's the busy time of year, people steer clear of the downtown in Julian on the weekends because that's when we get the maximum amount of visitors. But if you come on a weekday in the springtime, which I think is the most lovely time in Julian, come in April on a Thursday and you have the entire place to yourself and it's just as lovely. You can get just as good a pie and sample everything. The only thing you can't quite do is pick an apple, but there's a lot of time of year where Julian is just beautiful and it's not full of people. So I'm always encouraging people to try and come at the other times of year because there's a lot of great things going on all year round, and we appreciate their business not just in the fall but every season.
Absolutely, we do. So let's just review the seasons a little bit. So in the fall, September, October, you've got your peak seasons with apple picking.
Yep,
You've got the crisp mountain weather, vibrant autumn foliage, right? You have change of colors, right, on the trees.
absolutely. Yeah, we get that change of color coming in early October through into November.
And then in winter, you've got some snow.
We do get some snow. Whenever we get a substantial snow, there are a lot of folks that come up the mountain to
yeah.
play in the snow. They bring their sleds, they bring their families, and they just want to play around. Many of these folks have never been in the snow before; it's their only opportunity. So we definitely get a lot of visitors for the snow in the winter.
And how does that compare to like our Arrowhead or Big Bear areas?
Well, it's very different than those because we're not high enough in elevation to support snow sports for the entire season. It's very dependent on if there was a big storm that came through that dumped some snow on the mountain, then we'll have some snow, but it will eventually melt away and then it's gone until the next big storm comes through. So we don't have any permanent resorts for skiing or anything like that, like they do in
Okay.
Big Bear or Arrowhead, like those areas. But when we get our snow, it's substantial enough for people to come and have a good time for a few days.
And probably there's some advantages for the people that aren't snow sport people like us to just come and enjoy the snow, but don't want to be surrounded with people that are skiing and
Yeah,
snowboarding and all
it's a
those.
lot more for the natural beauty of just the snow and
Yeah,
the environment rather than all of the different activities that people pay a lot of money to go do on those other mountains.
right. And then in your spring and summer,
Hmm.
Roger talked about the beauty. You both talked about the weather, wildflowers, outdoor festivals. It's
Yes.
less crowded.
Yeah. Yeah. Both spring and summer are much less crowded. In the summer, there's also, great weather. It's usually has a nice mountain breeze blowing through. Most of the time, we have a wonderful July 4th parade that
Yes.
if you've ever dreamed of being in a tiny little Americana town with a cute little 4th of July parade, Julian has the one you've been looking for. Roger and I are actually some of the announcers for that parade every year. We get
And
to
that, yeah.
sit next to each other and announce the floats coming by on that parade. But that's a great event to check out in Julian every July 4th.
How fun! How fun! And so then, where do people stay? Are pretty much all of your visitors in and out one day visitors? Do you have a lot of overnight or weekend visitors?
Yeah, we have a lot of overnight visitors. We have several very established hotels in town. The Julian Hotel is one of the oldest hotels in California that's continuously
Really?
operating. It was started as the Hotel Robinson, once again by a family of freed Southern slaves. Came to Julian right during the gold rush. They started the Hotel Robinson. It is now called the Julian Hotel, and you can still go and stay there. So there are really wonderful hotels. There are also wellness retreats and resorts. There's event centers. They're peppered about Julian. There's also a very active VRBO and Airbnb community of listings throughout there. So no matter what it is, from camping all the way to luxury accommodations, whether it's a one night quick trip or whether it's doing your wedding at in one of these venues, Julian has a place that can accommodate just about everything.
And it's interesting
And
about it's interesting because there's a lot of different kinds of tourists that come up. There'll be the day trippers you're talking about. There'll be the overnight people. There'll be the wedding guests. But there's also there's a big hiking contingency that comes down the Pacific Rim Trail there. What is it called, Tyler?
Pacific Crest Trail, yeah.
Yeah, Pacific Crest Trail. and and you see a bunch of people, big buff people with backpacks and sticks, and they're hiking along. And a lot of the merchants in our little one block town produce a lot of services for these folks to take on their way as they're going along the Pacific Crest Trail.
of course, an apple pie.
Yeah.
And apple, oh, of course. Of
and
course.
and some cider to go.
Well,
Of course.
if you're hiking from Mexico to Canada, you're gonna need a few apple pies to get
Yeah.
you there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all need a little bit of sugar from time to time to keep us going.
That's right. That's right.
Tyler, I just have a quick question for
Yeah.
you as a chamber president.
Mhm.
What would you like to see added in Julian's future? Is there anything, or is there anything you'd like to see different that you're already doing?
Oh, well, I mean, the thing that, and I've already said it several times already, but, encouraging visitors through all of the different times of year is our big priority as far as, encouraging, out of the area folks to come and visit Julian. It's such a special place year round that I think that it deserves more visitation at other times of year. And that's the big thing that we're always trying to promote, whether it's through doing festivals at different times of year, whether it's just, highlighting different businesses and different things going on in the town throughout all the times of year. But we're just trying to keep it top of mind for people all the time. If they want a nice little weekend away, that there's something that's close by. It's for so many people in Southern California, it's 3 hours or less of a drive to Julian, and there's a lot of great things to do.
And from Orange County and San Diego, the driving distance is about how far?
Yeah, it depends on what part of the counties you're coming from, but usually from Southern Orange County, you're a 2 hours drive. From most of San Diego, you're around an hour drive. It depends on how many stops you make it, how many roadside cideries and antique stores and different things along the way. But the best is to come and spend the night, and to make a day trip out of it, where you're staying the night and then heading home the next day. Because I think that by the time that you get to Julian, you want to have time to explore, but you also, want to be able to sit back and relax and then just enjoy the clean mountain air. And a huge part of coming to Julian that we haven't talked about at all is the stars in the night sky.
Actually, that's coming up, so let's
Okay.
do talk.
Well,
Just
great.
go right to that. Great segue.
Great segue. Nice job. I should be the president of the Chamber of Commerce.
You should be. I've seen a title called Dark Sky Reserve. I've heard that you are Julian is an official dark sky community.
That's correct.
Let's talk about that. What is that? What does it mean? And how do you get that designation?
Yeah, well, and Roger please chime in if you have any more information about that. But there was a movement by several community members who wanted to get that designation from Julian, and that's something that the county and the state recognize Julian as being a place where there is minimal light pollution, where you can go out and look at the night sky and actually see things like the Milky Way and all of the stars in the sky. It also encourages residents and businesses to use timers on all of their lights so that you minimize light pollution, to use shrouds on their lights so light isn't going everywhere. It's just lighting, maybe your front porch, but it's not lighting the entire front yard, things like that. And everyone's really embraced that throughout the community. And it's just beautiful when you, especially in the summer months, you just get the best stars because there's not a cloud in the sky. You can get out onto these mountaintops in the evening and watch a beautiful sunset, and then watch all the stars come out, and just really get a nice show. My father was a kind of an amateur astronomer growing up, and he was constantly dragging me out in the wee hours of the night to see some celestial happening.
Look.
Every time it was look, and he would be pointing things out to me. But nowadays it's so easy. There's an app on your phone that you can just point at the sky and it tells you where all the constellations are. But I had to learn them all because my father kept hammering them into me my entire childhood. So I can find you the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper and Scorpius and all of the different constellations pretty well.
So how can people know when is the right time to come for that? Is there a time when, there must be a time when you can anticipate that it's going to be more visible?
Yeah, well, summer's great for that because there's a lot less cloud cover in the summer. Those times when it's clear weather are the best times to come for the stars. And just the way that the stars work in the summer, the constellations that like the Big Dipper and those things, they're right above you in those summer months. So that's why I recommend July.
And Val, I tell you, this is serious business because the government actually decades ago, when they were thinking about putting in Southern California a major observatory, which eventually went to Palomar Mountain, but the first place they looked at was Volcan Mountain, which is just north of town, because it happens to have at least as good, if not better, sight to all of what Tyler was just talking about from Julian. So it's a very serious location for those who really enjoy the stars. And what I enjoy about the stars from my house, I go up on the roof and look at the stars because it's also so quiet. I mean, one of the things, you come out of the city, you don't realize the level of noise, the ambient noise that you experience in a city. You get to Julian and it just all goes like this. And you just go down to a silent, and all of a sudden you realize you're listening to crickets, and you're not listening to a whole bunch of traffic, and so it's a really magical place for that.
Yeah, I can imagine being there under the stars and just watching, of course, while you're having a piece of apple pie.
That's
absolutely right. Absolutely.
I've heard that it's better when you're stargazing, if you're eating apple pie at the same time. I've heard that it's better. What do you think?
It tends to improve just about every activity.
Every activity, especially if you put ice cream on it. Now that's kind of my favorite, but.
Right. Yeah, so that's one of our questions. We have some trivia for you guys.
Okay. Wow.
What's your go-to Julian pie flavor? Being classic apple, Dutch apple, boysenberry, or what else?
Tyler?
First, Roger. Oh, I was going to say you go first. All right, I'll go. My favorite is a apple boysenberry. So apples mixed with boysenberry. I like the traditional apple is fantastic, but you throw a few berries in there. Apple cherry is also a close second for me. Really good. I personally like the Dutch or flaky top, depending on what nomenclature you're using. But I don't like my pies to be super, super sweet. I really like to taste the fruit in my pie. Some people love the super sugary pie. If you like a sweeter pie, then get the crumb top. There's more sugar in the crumb top pies than there are in the traditional flaky style pies. But I like that. But if I'm going to get a regular piece of apple, then I'll probably melt a piece of sharp cheddar cheese on it, because that's.
Oh, yes. So
Okay, so
my
go
favorite,
ahead,
Val,
Roger.
I got to tell you that I like everything that Tyler said because I tell you what, all these are good tasting. But when the rhubarb season comes along and they add rhubarb with apple,
Oh,
that's one of my
oh,
favorites right there.
Yes.
I'm in. I'm in. I'm
Yep.
in. Yep, my grandma made rhubarb pie.
Yeah.
It's been a long time ago. Okay, next one. A la mode or not?
Well, there you go. I love ice cream on it, but I'll tell you, I'll take that cheese too because every one of those kinds of experiences is unique. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm definitely an a la mode guy most of the time, especially if it's one of the ones with berries in it for sure. And you got to make sure that piece of pie is warm with
Yes.
the ice cream. Oh,
Yes.
So I have to say, I just don't think that there's anything that couldn't be made better with ice cream.
right. Yeah, I don't.
That's
Apple
true.
is great, apple pie, but put ice cream on anything, and I'm your gal.
Yeah.
I'm your gal. Okay, if you were planning a Julian getaway, would you go just for the day? Would you spend the night in a cozy inn, cabin, or a hotel?
Tyler?
Oh, well, I think I already answered this question a little bit, but I would definitely go for the night. For the stars are the number one reason why that's the answer. And it's really hard to go wrong with lodging in Julian. There are really a lot of great options. So it would really depend on how many people I was traveling with. If it was, just me and my wife, I would find a really nice room at one of the local hotels. They have honeymoon suites and different things like that. That would be great. If I was traveling with my whole family, then I would start looking at VRBO or Airbnb or some of the other things. And if I was just by myself, man, I would just go out and camp at one of the state parks, or that's a great family activity too. So there's definitely something for everyone as far as lodging.
I'm sure you would. We have 1 minute left. Let me ask you this. Where's your favorite place to snap a picture in Julian? Your photo op would be where? A pie or an orchard, a pie shop, a charming old building. Where would it be? Roger, you go first.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got also a piece of the ownership of a ranch, and from the lodge at Sacred Mountain Ranch, I look out on the Vulcan Mountain Range, and I cannot see a human-made thing in this entire view that I'm looking at, and I love that about because not many places in San Diego County can you look out at your view and not see something man-made. So I'm just enthralled by the Sacred Mountain Ranch, and by the way, they just added horseback riding, which is really exciting to a lot of
That's
people to
great.
come out. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Tyler, your photo op.
I would say would probably be out at Lake Cuyamaca. You can see the Stonewall Mountain, which you can climb. It has a large rock outcropping on the top. You can see a beautiful lake with pine trees. And if you're lucky, you'll be there on a day when a bald eagle is fishing
That's right.
from that lake, and you'll get that
That's
in the
right.
photo as well. So that would be my
Oh,
my call for that one.
oh, that's great. Well, to our viewers and our listeners, if you weren't already craving a slice of apple pie, I'm sure you are now. And a huge thank you to our guests today, Tyler and Roger, for sharing the sweet secrets and warm hospitality that make Julian so special and sharing things behind the scenes. But you know now that whether it's apple season or not, Julian is a place where you can step back in time, make family memories, and enjoy life's simple pleasures from gold mines to starry skies. And of course, those unforgettable pies. Julian has a few apples and pies for everyone. I'm Valerie Van De Zilver. This has been SoCal with Val. Until next time, keep exploring, keep savoring, and remember, sometimes the best adventures are just a slice of pie away.